Jesus Christ was not an original thinker. Many of his ideas and teachings can be paralleled in other religions and traditions and can be found in the sayings of other great moral leaders and teachers throughout history and in our own time. His ideas can also be interpreted and twisted for false ends. They are as liable to be turned into alternative facts as any other collection of ideas. But he is an original person. In fact, a unique person, God and man. And basically that's why we're here today in this church, remembering what he did and who he was. Of course, Jesus did teach, and many people listened to him, and still do. And much of his teaching, his ideas, can be found in the Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5 to 7 of St. Matthew's Gospel, and it is from this great sermon that our Gospel readings come today, and for the next few Sundays. St. Augustine called it a perfect standard of the Christian life. Gandhi claimed that this was the one part of the teachings of Jesus in particular that he found especially compelling. He claimed to love the Sermon on the Mount, even though he rejected the theological claims of Christianity about Jesus. The type of character and conduct depicted in the Sermon on the Mount is one which makes a universal appeal to the human conscience. It does not differ greatly from what the world's greatest ethical teachers have always set before their hearers, and parallels can often be quoted from the teachings of Confucius, the Buddha, the Stoics, and the Pharisees. Did his first followers listen to Jesus because he had something new to say? On some occasions, Jesus made it quite clear that he was only saying what Israel had heard for generations from the prophets and the law. The two great commandments, love of God and love of neighbour, had been there since Moses. Nothing new there. Yes, he also went beyond the law, so he would say, you have heard it said that you shall not commit murder, but I say to you, you shall not even insult your brother. He went much further. But surely the disciples came to him not for his original ideas, but because he spoke with authority. Because what he had to say were not just words, but in him they saw that God had indeed visited his people. The Word, as well as all the words of the Old Testament, the Word had become flesh and lived, taught, healed, suffered, died, and rose among them. They and we cannot be like Gandhi. Yes, we value the words he spoke, but much more, we believe in him who spoke them and continues to speak them in our hearts and in our church. Let's look at now the section of the Sermon on the Mount that we've just heard. The Beatitudes, one of the most well-known passages which are so accessible to people who may find other aspects of the faith difficult. We sang in the psalm, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Some of you may still have missals which include the former translation used in church, the Jerusalem Bible. And it caused some controversy when it first came out in the 70s for some of its translations, and one of them was, for the Beatitudes, instead of "blessed are the poor," Jerusalem had, "How happy are the poor in spirit." Another recent translation, my father Nick King, a Jesuit scholar, who single-handedly translated the whole Bible, has, "Congratulations to the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I think this last translation, "congratulations," highlights an important truth. We are not meant to think as follows: Jesus says that we should be poor, meek, gentle, peacemakers, so I will go and try and do those things, And if I do, I can look forward to reward. The kingdom of heaven will be ours. We shall see God, etc. But rather, Jesus is saying, congratulations, you have achieved these things. Or rather, you have become these things. Because I am poor in spirit, Jesus says, I make peace. I am peace. And you are now one with me through your membership of my body, and therefore you also have become Christ-like. In these ways, you have entered into the kingdom. Congratulations. Even if Jesus was not an original thinker, the church has been blessed with many saints and teachers who were original, who had a great influence on the development of Christian thought. And the early church didn't have to wait very long. St. Paul was certainly the first great teacher, thinker in the church. And he gloried in theology and in clever, sophisticated argument, and yet he knew its limits. Today, from 1 Corinthians, we heard, God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. In the end, we are more to be congratulated on our purity of heart, our humility, our mercy, our peacemaking, and on our willingness to suffer for righteousness' sake, than on our ability to weave clever arguments and to worship the false god of originality.